In 1964, there were 5.6 million children in Catholic schools. In 1989, there were 2.5 million, a decline of 3.1 million children. In 1965, there were 13,290 Catholic elementary and secondary schools. Today, there are 8,860. 4,430 Catholic schools have disappeared in less than 30 years. Yet 95% of Catholic school pupils graduate from high school, compared with 73% of those in public schools. 83% of those in Catholic schools go on to college, compared with 52% from public schools. Catholic school children consistently score higher in math and science than their public school counterparts. Catholic education is outstanding by all standards, yet the number of pupils in schools continue to decline. Just what is the story with Catholic education? That is what we will explore in this episode of St. Charles Forum.
The Eternal Word Television Network presents the St. Charles Forum from St. Charles Borromeo Seminary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Hello and welcome to St. Charles Forum as we discuss Catholic education. We're very privileged to have some distinguished guests with us today. First of all, we have Monsignor Philip Kribben, Secretary of Education for the Catholic Archdiocese of Philadelphia, which is the third largest private school system in the country. Sister Margaret Gradel of the Sister Servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, who serves as the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Education for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Father Philip Eichner of the Society of Mary, who is President of Kellenberg Memorial High School in Uniondale, New York, and Miss Barbara Falk, Headmistress of Oakcrest Girls' School in Washington, D.C. So, my friends, we're very happy to have you with us to discuss Catholic education. Most Catholics just take it for granted that we have all of these Catholic schools, elementary schools, high schools, private schools. And yet, there's no other institution in this country that has the system of schools that the Catholic Church does. Where does this come from? What's the origin of all these schools? Sister?
Oh, John, the schools really started way back in the 1500s with the first settlers, but not as a system or just, it was just originally in a place where the settlers were, in Florida particularly. But in the Ursuline sisters came to Louisiana in the 1700s, and that was really the beginning of the Catholic schools as we know them today.
So when the Catholic Church was there, schools were there, right? That's from the very beginning.
Exactly, and that was because the parents wanted them. The parents wanted what was the faith to be taught to their children, and it wasn't just limited either to a certain strata of society. The Ursuline sisters did teach all strata. They taught the poor, they taught the children of the wealthy, and then they taught the laborers as well. So, and that's been the tradition. And
but where the church is, there are schools.
Have the schools,
Yes.
Exactly.
Now, Father Philip, your community is dedicated to teaching, right? Or was set up, that was its original charism, to be teachers.
Yes.
Why was it so important that you would form a congregation, a whole religious community, to pursue education?
Well, we were founded basically after the French Revolution, and our founders saw that the most efficient way to reform society is to establish educational institutions.
Now, was that a bad time for the church right after the French Revolution?
Oh yes, it was very bad. Things fell apart very quickly, and even in the Napoleonic Restoration, things didn't get back to normal for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. But strangely enough, and curiously enough, and providentially enough at the same time, there were a number of religious communities who rose up at that time to take care of the needs of education.
Now, if there was a desire to restore the church, transform society, why is it that they would have looked to education? Why didn't they try to take over offices and government and that sort of thing? Why the emphasis on schooling?
I think it's unique because they saw at that time that in the new society, you had to educate the person. It was a new type of society that was generating. It wasn't a society that was structured. It wasn't so much classed anymore.
Okay, there was the old feudal society where they had layers of aristocrats and nobles. Now everybody was
there. And our founder actually wanted to set up normal schools in each of the departments of France.
Oh,
So if I could teach the teachers, I can counteract the negative philosophy, the negative influence that was coming from secular society at the time.
And the French Revolution was very hostile to the church, wasn't it?
It was hostile, a lot of negativity, a lot of confusion, and the school seemed to be that instrument by which the church could touch the generation about to be born.
So there's that proverb, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. Right.
That's right.
So this is the Catholics were going to try to educate the children and prepare
That's
for a
right.
new society.
To restore, our founder would say, to restore the faith in France, faith restoration. That faith no longer is communicated automatically by society. There has to be a personal investment, a personal involvement with each generation.
I see. Yeah, so you touch the young people in the schools.
Which is very much true today, too.
Now, Monsignor Kribben, Philadelphia has this massive school system. I mean, surely far beyond anything that the original settlers in Miami, or in southern Florida, I guess is where they came, or in Louisiana would have anticipated. When did this sort of massive bureaucratic structure get started in this country?
Well, our origin can be found in the 1840s, especially when there were nativists in Philadelphia.
What's a nativist?
Well, they didn't want Catholics. They wanted the original Protestant population to prevail in Philadelphia, and they burned 2 of our Catholic churches during those years. And it was really in this hostile climate that the bishops early in the history of our diocese saw the need to establish Catholic schools. St. John Neumann in the 1850s was really considered the founder of our Catholic school system because he built so many of them.
He was one of the bishops of Philadelphia.
One of the bishops of Philadelphia, yes. The 4th bishop of our diocese. And he expanded the parish school system tremendously. And it's been built upon with the passing of years.
And so you might say that it's with St. John Neumann that you really have the beginning of this massive structure that we associate with Philadelphia schools.
Yes, yes.
But he did it, you say, with the parishes? He started...
The parish schools, and the first diocesan high school was established in 1890, but that was early relative to the rest of the country. I say it was a diocesan high school because this Mr. Cahill died and left money for the establishment of a diocesan high school that would be tuition-free.
And you still have it?
We still have that school, yes.
Good. How many high schools are there in the Diocese of
We have 22.
Philadelphia? Wow, that's
diocesan schools, and we have about 10 other private Catholic schools that are conducted by religious communities.
Now, I think Sister mentioned that the parents wanted schools for their children. So lay people were very much involved in education right from the very beginning. Now, it was not accidental that we have this array of guests. I mean, Monsignor Kribben represents the institutional, structured approach of the church to education. Sister Margaret is with a religious community given to teaching, as is Father Philip. But we have a laywoman with us who's also concerned about education. Had the laity traditionally been involved in Catholic education as well?
I would say absolutely. As Sister was saying, I think what Catholic schools do is they enter into a partnership with the parents to give the faith to the children. And the parents need us, and we need the parents, because the parents are the primary educators, and we're the secondary educators.
Oh, the parents are the primary educators
sure
of children.
are.
I see.
Yes.
And then the schools are there to serve the parents.
Absolutely.
So whether we're dealing with a school that's a lay initiative, as the one is in Oakcrest, that was founded by lay people, right,
Yes.
is run by lay people, or whether we're talking about an archdiocesan high school or one run by the Marianists, we're talking about schools who are there to help the parents, right?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
right.
Exactly right.
Now, how do you get parents involved? What kind of involvement is there for parents? What do you do to make sure that you're carrying out the tasks that the parents want you to carry out? Well, how about the archdiocesan schools?
Well, we distinguish between the elementary and secondary schools. On the elementary level, of course, the pastor is very much involved in the life of the school. And on the secondary level, we try to get parents involved by having them present in the school as volunteer workers during the school day, but also a structured thing in terms of the home and school associations, where we discuss the curriculum that's being offered at the school.
Are there school boards that the parents would serve on?
Not formally a school board, home and school associations, but some of them get quite involved in reviewing the curriculum of the school and comparing our curriculum with that of other Catholic schools to see ways in which we can improve our school system. But there is very much a central control over our schools, a central office that allows a little bit of freedom for creativity in the school, but there's more central control in our archdiocese than there is anywhere else in the country.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Sister?
In the elementary schools, the parents have a great deal of input and working along with the students and teachers, because primarily the sacramental grades, when the children receive the sacraments for the first time, we try to involve the parents very closely in that instruction. Mm-hmm. So in addition to what Monsignor is saying, there's that added opportunity for parents to become a part of the whole picture, the whole teaching philosophy of the school.
Well, we have all these different approaches to Catholic education. Father Philip, now you run a boys' school, right?
We have two schools. One is all boys, and the other is co-ed.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And part of it is communication to them. There is a great desire on the part of parents for their children, and that's what we capitalize on. They are concerned, even if they are not strongly involved in the church. Often it's through the child that the parents become active members in the faith again.
So, I mean, in a sense, it's what we say, it's of the natural law that parents are the primary educators of their children. But we say it's a very natural thing in the sense that you don't have to tell parents that. I mean, they're willing to sacrifice, they're willing to drive long distances to make sure that their children are in good schools. Mm-hmm. So you're responding to their sort of God-given inclination to make sure that their children are well-shaped.
That's right. And they have two concerns, I've found. One, they want a faith content. And secondly, they want good education. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to make the sacrifice if both those elements are there. But there is a faith content they want.
Oh, very much so, I would think. Do you find that's the case also with Oakcrest?
Oh, absolutely. As far as sacrifice, we have a demographic area that's just so widespread. We have a lot of our children come from more than 1 hour commute.
Oh, my goodness.
And one girl comes by Amtrak train to Union Station, then Metro. So we're astounded with the sacrifices people are willing to make. Mm-hmm. And we find that parents should get the most attention, because if you spend more time helping the parents, then the children will obviously benefit. So we actually put the parents first, then the teachers, and then the students, because the students will always be the recipients if you have the parents and the teachers in sync and in unity and leadership.
Now, I assume you must have some kind of school board. I mean, since you're a lay
We do definitely have a board of
association,
directors. Mm-hmm.
A board of directors, which are made up of the parents of the students. Now, how many schools are there in Washington that are run by Opus Dei, if you will?
In Washington, two. We have a brother school, which is the Heights, and then Oakcrest. So we have two.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time actually already in this segment, but when we come back in the next one, I'd like to look at what parents do look for most. You said already, look in terms of faith, and they look in terms of good education. But how is that actually lived out in the schools to which we send our children? So we'll be right back to discuss Catholic education further on St. Charles Forum.
The St. Charles Forum will return in a moment.
Welcome back to St. Charles Forum as we discuss Catholic education. And right at the end of the last segment, we were saying that it's faith that drives most parents in sending their children to Catholic schools. I suppose that's the experience that all of you have found. How is that lived out in your various school experiences? Because you're all dealing with different kinds of schools. Barbara, at Oakcrest, how are the children brought closer to our Lord?
Well, I'd say our number one goal is to introduce them to choosing a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Because what they have to learn, and I think all of us agree, is that Catholics don't follow rules and regulations. They follow a person, and that's Jesus Christ. And that can get lost in the doctrine if you don't constantly emphasize it. So I would say that we try to teach them piety and just dealing with Jesus Christ in the tabernacle.
But that's a good point. I mean, if I might, because you said something that can sometimes be lost in the doctrine. Now you're saying that we can have great religious education, good doctrine, and somehow these children aren't coming face to face with Jesus Christ. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because I think a lot of people who have a bone to pick with the church, maybe they're in their 30s right now, may have felt that they got rules and regulations and they lost Jesus Christ in the whole thing. And I think that's a massive tragedy, because we're trying desperately not to let that happen, because it's Jesus Christ that's the center. And the early Christians had that completely clear.
So this is the reason for the Catholic schools. I mean, he's the
Definitely.
reason for the season at Christmas time. He's the reason for Catholic schools.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Father Philip, what are some of the things you do in your school to bring these young people in touch with our Lord?
Well, drawing off that analogy, which is a very true one, we have a phrase that says, atmosphere educates. And you will create an atmosphere in which the things you're teaching are experienced. It's not just a filling station to be tanked up on doctrine. That doesn't, there is an integration as a Christian humanism. There's an experiential aspect which you only can do in an institutional setting.
Now, do your teachers, are they all believers? Are they all Catholics? Practicing
I
believing
hope so.
Catholics?
As far as I know, yes.
So
Yes.
that's what provides the atmosphere,
Oh,
right?
yes.
These young
Oh,
people
yes.
see adults whom they will
Right.
look up to, an athletic coach, a chemistry teacher, and they know that this person goes to Mass, he prays, he's close to our Lord himself.
They know-
That's the atmosphere you're talking about.
Yes, they know that there's an overriding philosophy, that there's a whole basis which we can create. The great freedom of the American system is that we can create an atmosphere in our schools which is derivative of our faith. And it touches all things. It touches algebra, and it touches activities, it touches the way we deal with each other.
Now, you're not saying that belief in Jesus Christ will determine how you figure out an algebraic formula.
Not how you get the answer, but it might help you integrate what mathematical analysis is all about. The whole idea of Christian humanism, of touching all the world as being a given, a God-given fact, and that you don't make these things religious, you don't put a religiosity or piety on them, but you see all of creation as part of the whole theophany.
Of the theophany, that's a big word.
Right.
The revelation of God, of himself to
in
the
space
people.
and time, to everything. That's right. That's right.
So that the science that they're learning, the math that they're learning, they find that the application of that can be used to serve God's people and to give
correct.
expression of their faith.
Truth is one, and that's the basic understanding of Christian humanism. Truth is one. So all these things participate some way in that truth.
Now, sister, with this proverb, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree, you're dealing with the sprouts, right? They're in the elementary schools, right? How do you try to bring these little ones to our Lord?
Well, I guess they're the easiest of all to bring because they haven't lived too much of life, so they don't have all the skepticism,
Yeah, God bless them.
that so many people do. But I think it's based on what Barbara said and what Father said too. It's a philosophy that we have in our schools, and the children live that philosophy on their level. If they're 5 years old or if they're 12 years old, it's geared to that level of their development, and they see their faith lived by the teachers, by the principal, many times by just the people who come into the school, their parents or other parents. They see it as a value, and they see it applied in all kinds of different circumstances.
Now, you say the little ones are especially open to this because they haven't developed the skepticism yet. But I suppose this is also where many of them come to Jesus through those sacraments, right? In the lower grades, First Holy Communion, First Confession.
Exactly, and they bring with them such a sense of wonder and awe. And then that's too when they begin to question, and they learn through that, and they are on their own spiritual journey with the Lord, and they're coming to know Him in a very special and intimate way. And perhaps it's the most intimate way they really will come to know Him for a really long time, because as they grow, other influences come into their lives sometimes that take precedence over this. But many, many times we see how what they've learned as youngsters stays with them and comes to the forefront.
I remember
as they're adults.
I was on lunch duty, heaven forbid, it's a dreadful obligation placed on parents, but I was on lunch duty one time at our children's elementary Catholic school. And several hundred children, lunchroom, noisy, raucous, smelly. They were sweaty. They'd been out playing. It was not a pleasant experience. But all of a sudden, this bell rang, and everybody got quiet. They all stood up and they prayed the Angelus together. The prayer at noontime where we remember that Jesus Christ became incarnate and came to save us. And I thought, what a beautiful thing. And the children carried that out with them. I mean, when I found out that, I didn't even know that was happening. But after I learned that, I started praying the Angelus with my children when we'd be out together on Saturday and noon would come along. We'd just stop and hear that the schools had prepared them for it. It was a beautiful thing to see, and it was so natural to them.
Right.
They didn't think anything of it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the Archdiocese must have a real challenge with the older children, though, in these high schools.
Well, our focus is always on message, community, and service. We try to integrate all three things there. And proclaiming the message, we're relying heavily on the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
The new one that's coming out.
A wonderful instrument, for teaching the Christian message as it's reflected in the magisterium of the Catholic Church. But we also focus on building a sense of community, celebrating the Eucharist with groups of students.
Now, the Mass is a regular part of their experience, their activity together.
And retreats as well. Different activity groups will plan their own liturgies, and some of our schools have several priests on the faculty, and they provide a lot of the sacramental ministry to the students. But in a sense of community, we often talk about the students sharing the successes and failures of one another. And children who have transferred from other schools into the Catholic system at a later age are especially struck by the sense of community, the caring relationship.
Yeah, that they don't find in other
the students
schools.
reaching out to other students. That's very distinctive in our Catholic schools. So the high place of the Christian message as reflected in the Catholic Christian tradition, the sense of community, and then service activities. We have many of our students involved in tutoring younger students who have maybe learning difficulties or they're not up to the grade level of achievement that they should be.
So through service, they try to imitate Jesus Christ.
They do.
I mean, they have the message of Jesus Christ taught to them.
They visit nursing homes and things of that sort.
And then they're formed into the community of love of Christ,
Exactly.
and then they live as Christ does by
Yes.
going out and serving others.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I'm perplexed, I have to admit, I'm bewildered, because Catholic education is a beautiful thing. All the studies have shown that the children in Catholic schools excel, and yet for some reason the numbers are declining. I mentioned that at the beginning of the show. I mean, I'm bewildered. I mean, if it's such a great thing, why is it that the numbers are declining? Because the overall Catholic population is even going up. What are the causes? Why?
Well, I think there are several causes, and one of the main causes, at least in our area here in Philadelphia, is the cost for parents to send their children to Catholic schools.
Why is it so much more expensive now than it was 30, 40 years ago?
Well, there are a couple factors for that, too. One is the decline in teaching religious has caused the cost of the education to go up. And
So we don't have Sister Scholastica and her 20 sisters there anymore.
Exactly. And also, there's a decline in attendance at church, and that was the primary source of the funding, was the revenue that the people contributed in the offertory collection to the parish. And since there's a decline in attendance,
So the Catholic life is all of a piece. huh?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. One thing can't be divorced from the other in that
Barbara, what do you
instance.
think are some of the other causes for this perplexing situation?
Well, I think originally it might have been the decline in the birth rate, and now that's kind of come up with too many booms I think we've had. But
Even not as many children anymore.
right, but maybe that's changing a little bit now. But in Washington, we have, I think, a problem of not enough spaces in the Catholic school system
Oh, really? Yeah,
to handle the people that really want to get in. So I think that it may be swinging.
Oh, well,
I think it might be.
Good. Yeah.
Cost is certainly a factor. There's been a tremendous shift in population, that is the residents of Catholic people in our diocese, as they've moved to the outer counties. Some of the parishes would like to build a school, but they don't have the financial resources.
So in other words, you're saying there was a school in the inner city that maybe had a magnificent building and structure, and now virtually all the Catholics have moved out to the suburbs. The population has dwindled in that school in the city, and there's no school in the suburbs.
School.
So, yeah.
But we are building new schools in our archdiocese in the suburban areas. Not sufficiently to fulfill the need that's there, but we see a desire on the part of people who have located in suburban counties to have the same kind of Catholic school experience that they had when they were growing up.
Well, how do you think we can get over this problem with the cost? I mean, we have 9 children. We'd love to see all of them get a Catholic education, and it becomes a very difficult thing for parents to do. Is there a solution to this?
Well, we try to be sensitive in setting tuitions so that there's a family package in many of our schools. But we're also looking for voucher legislation to be passed in the state of Pennsylvania.
Now, what is voucher legislation? What does that mean?
Well, we're hoping that the state will provide a voucher to parents to take to the school of choice. We know that in the past, vouchers were given to military personnel at the end of the Second World War under the GI Bill, where they took a voucher to a school. And we know on the higher education level that there is funding provided at the state and federal level for students to go to the college of choice.
But they can't use it
on the elementary and secondary
school.
level.
Yeah.
No, and we're saying to the government, why can't that be extended?
Yeah, because it's not fair. I mean, they take my taxes from me for the purpose of educating my children, and then I can't even say where my child's to go to school. So that's what you're trying to remedy through this.
We're stressing the primary right of parents to decide what school their children will attend.
So that's called what? You're trying to get school choice.
School choice legislation.
School choice.
Okay, and that can be structured in different ways. Are they doing it in New York?
There's something being introduced to the state assembly legislature right now on that. The opposition, of course, is formidable, basically from the ACLU and the teachers' unions in the United States.
The ACLU, the American Civil
Liberties Union, and groups that are opposed to any choice because it would just destroy their monopoly.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is to find ways for Catholic parents truly to avail themselves of this wonderful opportunity which is there for them, and we're going to have to work with the political structure we find ourselves in to achieve that. Right?
I don't think it just affords the opportunity to Catholic parents. I think it's something that should be afforded to every parent.
Yeah, that's an excellent
You
point.
know,
Yeah.
not just Catholic parent. Every parent should have that choice to put their child in the school that would be best suited for that child.
Well, we'll be able to discuss some more about Catholic education when we come back in the next segment of St. Charles Forum.
The St. Charles Forum will continue in a moment.
Welcome back to St. Charles Forum as we discuss Catholic education. I had a friend who grew up in a Polish Catholic neighborhood, and he said he would go to these parish functions and they would always be serving up these pierogies, which they're made out of dough, right? And then there's some potato in the middle and they're fried. And every time he went to these parish functions, he was eating these pierogies. And he said it wasn't until he was in law school, he always thought that Catholic children went to parochial schools because the Catholic school there locally was a parochial school. He thought they were parochial schools. Now, there are different ways in which Catholic schools and Catholic education is structured. Now, there are these things called parochial schools. What is a parochial school?
Well, it's a school that's attached to a given parish. We tend to use the word parish school because of some of the negative connotation of the word parochial.
Or parochial, even.
But, you know, yes, exactly. But, you know, the parish school doesn't exist apart from the parish. You know, the whole life of the parish embraces the school, you know, and the school is not something distinct that's out there. But we want the total parish community to be involved in the life of the school. You'll see that there are grandparents going in, doing volunteer work in the library, or helping the children with their reading. The parents come to the Mass on the first Friday for the elementary school children. So we'd like to see the total parish supporting the school, and ideally, the majority of support should come from the total parish rather than just tuition.
So the parish is like, you talking about the importance of community before. So the
Yes.
parish is a little community, and part of that is the education of the children.
Right, right.
Sister, are most of your sisters involved in elementary education? The Immaculate, the IHMs, as they say.
IHMs, as they call us. We are involved in Catholic education, but many of our sisters are in elementary school, but we're also in the secondary school, and we are in higher education as well. And then many of our sisters are directors of religious education, and they run schools of religious
it's the full
education.
gamut, the full range.
Exactly. And we're moving into even adult education in many ways. We have a few literacy programs for people who are immigrants and don't speak the language. So yes, we're involved in Catholic education in all its forms.
So you have Immaculata College too, right?
That's
Here
correct.
in the Philadelphia area, which is your higher education
Exactly.
endeavor.
Exactly.
Well, we see the IHMs, or can I say this on the air, that you're sometimes known as the Mac nuns because of...
Right.
Yeah. But
That's with affection.
With great affection, with great affection. I mean, the IHMs are
Mighty
dearly
Macs.
loved in Philadelphia. Father Philip, your approach to education is quite different than this, though, isn't it?
Yes, we would represent the tradition of religious communities, which would have a apostolate sometimes, which would be trans-parochial or even trans-diocesan, and to form a network of different services for the church, whether in schools or hospitals.
Now, you just can't move into a diocese and say, well, we're going to set up a school here and start drawing children, can you? I mean,
Oh, no. And anything that is established in the diocese must be in coordination, conjunction with the bishop, who basically is the one in charge.
so the
of
bishop
that.
approves it, and then your community runs the school,
Would
right?
run the
They raise
school.
the money, they set up the
That's
school
right.
boards. And,
For example, in my diocese, traditionally, almost all the schools were run by religious communities.
most all of them were.
Yes, at the present moment, there are 2 diocesan high schools, and the other 7 or 8, 9 are run by religious communities.
So Philadelphia is quite remarkable, I guess, with the number of archdiocesan schools, right? High
Yes,
schools.
it is rather unique. We have tried to decentralize a bit with our secondary schools, even though there is a central administration that negotiates a contract with our teachers group and administers the financial administration of our 22 schools. We have now a president and a principal in place.
In each school.
In each school. And the president really crafts the vision for the school within its community and promotes the school in that area. He has the vision of where the school should be going over the next 5 to 10 years. So we've asked for a little more creativity on the local level and decentralized to some extent as well. But
Now,
we're still more centralized, more highly centralized.
Now, you have
than others.
22 archdiocesan high schools.
We do.
What's the largest number in one of your high schools?
Well, Archbishop Ryan is about 2,800 pupils.
One high school, 2,800.
Yes, yes.
And how many students altogether in the high schools?
On the high school level, we're about 23,000, just a little over
My goodness.
23,000.
And what about on the elementary level?
About 88,000.
My
pupils,
goodness.
yes.
My goodness. That's
And then we have
that's
special
enormous.
education programs as well. Yeah,
Wow,
so
well,
we're
you
on
must
various levels.
you must have an enormous bureaucracy to run this massive school system.
I think about how many, sister?
About 25
About
people.
25.
About 25
yes,
people.
yes.
That's incredible.
That includes all the financial people as well. you
That's
know,
remarkable.
Administering, our secondary school budget's about $80 million a year. But we, on the central level, have just about 25 people.
That is really amazing. Well, this is people are always saying that Catholic education is a great bargain. Isn't there a sociologist by the name of James Coleman who's done some study of
Yes.
what's he said about the costs of?
All of them are amazed at the cost of Catholic schools. They usually go to 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, depending on your area, of what the public school provides.
Really? Yeah.
Yes, public school, in my neighborhood, average public school student is $13,000 a year.
Per pupil,
Per
it costs to
pupil.
educate them.
That's right, and the local Catholic high school is around $3,500.
My goodness, yeah. That's, but it's because of dedication, right, Barbara? Of so
Right,
many
well,
people?
actually, people judge excellence by spending money when that's absolutely erroneous with what we were talking about, because
Excellent point.
you don't need money to do a good job. You need money to do it, but you don't need to spend that much money. And it's important that everybody keeps that in mind, because they always think, well, if you spend more money, you're going to have a better school. And it's not true, particularly in Catholic schools, because we learn to scrimp and save and put out an excellent product.
And people are willing to do it, again, because of their commitment to our Lord and to His church and to their children. I mean, those are the driving forces, I would think. Well, Barbara, how are your schools structured? You're a member of Opus Dei.
Yes.
Right. Now, that's a lay organization in the church.
Yes, it's a personal prelature of the Catholic Church, and it's made up of lay people from all over the world and of all ages. And it helps to think of Opus Dei as a portion of the people of God and ordinary faithful who just they try to live their lives according to the model of the early Christians. And the essence of Opus Dei is trying to sanctify your ordinary life through your ordinary
just
work.
where you are in the world.
Yes.
But there's a prelate. You said it's a personal prelature?
Personal prelature, and if you think about it, people, when you think of a prelature, you think of it as a diocese, and a diocese you usually think it's territorial. Well, in Opus Dei's case, it's a personal prelature, which means it's a diocese of persons,
Oh, that's
as
interesting.
opposed to territorial.
And there is a prelate? Is there a person?
Yes, there is a prelate, and he lives in Rome, and he's the second person, the founder, and then after the founder died, now there's a prelate.
Okay, so it's a relatively new movement within the church.
Very new. It's founded in 1928, and the founder is beatified.
I see. Now, you have these lay people then who are trying to find holiness in the world and to be the leaven in the lump, as it were.
Yes.
And some of them get involved in education because they see the importance of this. Then,
Parents, as Sister was saying earlier, where there are parents, they want to pass on the faith to their children. So I would say that the parents have this, they want their children to have a Catholic education with our bent, and I'm sure it's shared with them, is character formation and academic excellence. So we try to merge character formation with academic excellence and the whole idea of virtues and naming good and evil. And as he said earlier, the truth is one. I'd say a big thing is today the truth is obscured, and objective truth is something that should be respected and put into the curriculum as something that you have a choice to say yes or no. But we're not going to tell you it's not true.
Okay. Now, you wanted to see, obviously you wanted to set up this school in Washington,
Yes.
right? And so a group of people got together, they incorporated, they said we want to provide an education for our children. Now, this is under Opus Dei, right? It's an Opus Dei school?
Yes.
And you're a Catholic school, obviously. Can you call yourselves a Catholic school?
Well, we started off as a private independent prep school.
Okay, it was a college preparatory school.
College prep school that taught a full program of Catholic theology. In fact, we call it theology and not religion. So it's a major subject, and the kids call it theology. But the Cardinal Hickey, wanted to give us the name Catholic. So always in communion with the bishop, united with the bishop.
So you can't call yourself a Catholic school unless the bishop has designated you as a Catholic
That's
school.
right.
Did you approach the Cardinal, or did the Cardinal hear about this great operation that was going on?
Well, you know, John, I don't really know. I was there in the early years, and then I came back. But yes, I'm sure that he heard about it, and I'm sure that the
But it does need ecclesiastical approval
Definitely.
to be called Catholic. And that goes. That's the same for the religious schools as well.
Certainly.
It can't be done without the approval of the bishop.
They all operate under the mandate of the bishop as chief teacher of the diocese.
Now, I'm just curious about the relationship between, let's say, the official institutional educational structure of the Archdiocese and these other schools that might reside within that jurisdiction. What about, are you dictated with regard to your curriculum, Barbara? What about your school? Does the Archdiocese of Washington tell you what you have to teach?
No, the bishop, the cardinal, he's in charge of the religion program, but he gives you a lot of autonomy, and as long as you're in keeping with the magisterium, you have the freedom. And but I'm sure he may step in if somebody went off. But we have all different curriculums, I'm sure, among the archdiocesan schools, and we make sure that our curriculum is in teaching within the magisterium.
And now, when it comes to science and biology, you know, the sciences and literature and history and all of that,
Yes.
you just follow the general curriculum on that for the state, I suppose, right? Doesn't the state have a
Yes,
particular
and there are
curriculum, or
requirements that
the
we have to
District of
meet,
Columbia?
but there's a broad range, and we just try to pick the best books that again respect objective truth.
And Father Philip, what kind of regulations do you have to abide
It's
by?
pretty much the same way. It depends very much on the bishop and on the local group you're dealing with. In our diocese, there's a great deal of autonomy to the religious schools to create their own atmosphere and their own mandate. And it's basically working together with the diocesan office, putting it together, respecting each other, and realize that you're dealing with the same church, even though perhaps from a different aspect.
Right. Well, what if a teacher does go off base a little bit? Let's say a school goes off. I mean, let's say there's an orientation being given to this particular school run by religious, and the bishop's not too happy about it. I mean, can he really do something about it?
Oh, yes. Oh, I think he certainly can do something about that.
Even to the
yes.
point of maybe even closing it down. Huh?
Oh, he has many avenues because to the religious superiors of the group running the school, to say to them this is, and
Oh, he can go to their superiors.
Oh, yes, yes.
And of course, the bottom line always, what the bishop is concerned about, what the educators are concerned about, is the truth of Jesus Christ. I mean, we love him so dearly that we don't want to see the reality of Jesus being confused in any way or shrouded from these children. I mean, that's the most important thing.
One of the stereotypes that people have of the Catholic Church is that it's a monolith, and it's linear.
Yeah, it's all the same.
And yet, it has many varieties in it. Just the variety here,
we can,
educational,
just right here
apostolic.
today, we can see the great variety.
Tremendous variety, and as Monsignor said before, opportunity of creativity, of ability to do things differently. And the aspect of the faith is there's a broad field of Catholic truth. It's not good to think of the truth as just a narrow line. It's broad, it's multifaceted. And the educational apostolate of the Church in the United States is multifaceted. For example, we're not talking here about the universities.
Right.
We're the only country in the world that is able to have free, independent Catholic universities. Dozens and dozens of them.
Well, we're going to come back in the next segment and talk about some of the ways in which we can revitalize Catholic education, and we look forward to seeing you in the next segment at St. Charles Forum.
Stay tuned. The St. Charles Forum will return in just a moment.
Well, and welcome back to St. Charles Forum as we discuss Catholic education. You know, we were saying that we have to be honest. The Catholic schools are there to deal with objective truth. And one of the objective truths today is the fact that a lot of parents are dissatisfied with Catholic education. I mean, they're horrified in many respects with public education, and they're also upset with Catholic education. And more parents are actually going to homeschooling because of this. Are any of their concerns justified, Barbara? I mean, it's so simple out there that Catholic schools are just great, and the parents ought to just send their kids to the school down the street?
I think maybe there is validity to the fact that there's not a unified, maybe people can't depend on all the schools the same way, but I think they can find good Catholic schools, and I think the word gets out. And the big thing is they want to make sure that their children are being taught the truths of the faith. And one big thing that we try to do is to teach the children freedom. I mean, it's the most important thing, and people think that freedom is the power to choose, but it really is the power to choose the good.
No, but wait a minute. I mean, we hear all these stories about Catholic schools, and they're so rigid, aren't they? I mean, the rulers on the knuckles and marching in lockstep and the uniforms.
That's why I like to talk about freedom all the time. It's radical, because the church is founded on freedom. Internal controls, that's what the Catholic Church is. Internal controls, not external controls. Because if you're an external authoritarian person, when you walk out of the room, that's the end of your authority.
Yeah,
you have to teach the kids inside, and that's the important thing, virtues, and you're doing it for God, not because there's somebody standing over you.
Because they love God, and this is what we want to get across in the Catholic
That's
schools.
the big thing,
Right?
moved by love.
Well, Father Philip, do you find that let's say the revitalization of your own religious community has helped lead to the revitalization of the schools that you're associated with?
Yes, I think that's a very big factor. Our schools are expressions of our community. And parents, in choosing a school, they want a difference. They don't want a Catholic public school. Public education is a monopoly. It's state-funded. And here we are offering something in competition with a state-funded monopoly. That's quite
Not easy to do.
Not easy to be in competition. And people only choose it when there is something significantly different. And they come now and they look at schools. Years ago, 30 years ago, parents never came to a Catholic school to look it over. They knew what it was. It was this Catholic school. Everybody knew what a Catholic school was. But today they come, and it's really a buyer's market.
So we have to be, I'm a Catholic parent. We have to be discriminating about the Catholic school we send our children
Correct.
to. Is that right?
That's right. And conversely, the school then must be conscious that it is offering something unique, competent, well-ordered, a structure, an atmosphere that these parents want.
Now, Sister Margaret, I mean, your community it's a success story. I mean, you still have a large number of sisters. What's the size of your community?
think we have about 1,600 sisters, but they're not all on active duty, but that would be the total number.
But clearly, you've never forgotten what your goal is, right?
That's right. Hopefully we haven't, because that's part of our charism. We were originally founded to be teachers of religion. And
When was that?
in 1845 in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, you're a local religious community. I mean, of the United States.
Of the
I
United
mean.
States, that's correct.
Yeah.
We don't have a foreign founder. No, we don't. You were talking before about the good things, the problems we have in Catholic education. I think, yes, we do have problems, but as long as we're dealing with people, we will always have problems. But we've come a long way from what is the stereotype of Catholic education that seems to be portrayed so often in media, in the various films and shows on television, etc. Catholic schools are wonderful places for people to grow. They grow in a total way. There's not any part of their development that's neglected.
Well, that's true. You have, I mean, everything from going to Mass to being out on the hockey field, field
Exactly.
hockey field.
We develop a love for the arts. We have the religious foundation, the religious education, science, math, and it's all integrated within the whole personal part of the individual child. And I think we have to get that news out. We love what we're doing, and we want you to come and see. We would love to have you come and see us.
And now, we're not down on the public schools, but I mean, they
No.
can't touch the soul.
That's right.
So they have to leave something out of the education of the children just because of the way they're
That's right.
structured.
But, value education, you cannot exclude values from any education, because just who you are perhaps speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. So a teacher projects values just
Well, you
by
mean,
their
are you
person.
saying that the way they teach, let's say, health in the public schools, where they say, we're going to teach you about sexuality, but there can't be any values associated with it. We're just giving you the facts.
That's right.
Are you saying that's impossible to do?
Yes, I am.
You're right on the money, I think. Yeah, you're
Dissecting the
absolutely
human
correct.
person. You can't.
Because the facts
right.
don't do you any good unless you know what to do with them, right?
That's right.
Exactly
Yeah, that's,
right.
again, the whole point of Catholic
Right.
education.
And
That's
oh, sorry.
That's the question of freedom you mentioned about.
Right.
Not only is the student free, but the church, the Catholic school, is free to put all these other things in which the public school cannot do.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
They're
The fullness of
constrained.
it all. Mhm.
And no one, just to spin off on what Sister said, no one can pass unnoticed in our schools. And that's sometimes hard on the child when they haven't memorized their vocabulary. But it's great, the parents like to hear that, because they really can't. And you see somebody with a long face, you see somebody that looks troubled, I always say to the teachers, look in their eyes. And you wouldn't say that at a faculty meeting in a public school. They might think it's an intrusion of
They
privacy.
probably would, yeah.
Right. But we look at the
Yes.
child's soul first.
Yes, beautiful.
Yes. We have so many more opportunities, so many things we can do differently. We are really in loco parentis, in the place of the parents. In fact, what's significantly different, even politically, is that in a Catholic school, we are under contract law, while in the public school, they're under constitutional law.
Oh, that's interesting.
So-
I've never thought of that.
See, we stand in the place of the parent. We have as much power as the parent does. In the public school, they do not. They are individual citizens under the Constitution.
So the parents have entrusted
Yes.
this to you.
Yes.
That's why you can play that role.
That's right. And we
Well,
have-
you were saying earlier about the public schools having the monopoly and so forth and all the funding. One of the things this enables them to do is to look after handicapped children and so forth. And sometimes it's been said that the Catholic schools just aren't in a position to provide education for the handicapped. Is that the case here in Philadelphia
that's
as well?
certainly not
Monsignor?
true. We have established many centers for learning disabled students. We have schools that provide for the visually impaired, hearing impaired, mentally handicapped children. So we're trying to reach children at various ability levels. We're trying to reach everyone who's part of the Catholic community. So,
And I imagine that also provides the other children the opportunity to reach out in service and love that you were talking about earlier.
exactly, yes, yes.
These children are mainstreamed into our regular school program.
Now, you have to explain that to me. What's mainstreamed into a...
into a program. Well, let me just give you an example. We have a school for the visually handicapped, and that is connected to one of our regular parish elementary schools. So the children from the visually handicapped or visually impaired school are brought over into the classrooms with the children in the regular parish program. And it's a wonderful thing that happens there. You know, there's a great compassion on the part of young children when they see someone who is not able to see, let's say in this instance. But the handicapped child gives so much to the children who don't have that particular handicap. And I think it awakens in them a real sense of compassion and understanding. So that's just like kind of a byproduct of what happens in our schools.
But again, that can only happen if they're in a setting in which there are values, there's commitment to character, where their opportunities are taken to actually to try to help the children become more and more like Jesus Christ themselves. As you said beautifully earlier, Barbara, you look into the child's soul.
Right.
And do all of your schools have opportunity for confession and spiritual direction and Mass? I mean, should we assume that that's a standard part of Catholic education and something's a little wrong if the school doesn't have those?
Please.
We're fortunate to have Mass every day. In order to be Christocentric, we put the Mass in the center of the day, and it's totally optional, and most of our girls choose to go to Mass.
What's Christocentric mean?
Christocentric, putting Christ in the middle.
Okay, good.
Otherwise, you lose the meaning of Catholicism, which is Christocentric. But we also have opportunity for the Sacrament of Reconciliation every day, which is
Really?
a great
Wow, that's
privilege. We
incredible.
really feel that's a great privilege. And it's funny that the girls that are not Catholic, they even go in to talk to the priests.
Oh, wonderful.
And stop in. And they go into the oratory or the chapel to pray. They learn to pray.
Many of our schools schedule the Sacrament of Reconciliation at the beginning of the school year during the penitential seasons of Advent and Easter, where the priests from the neighboring parishes come in and they assist with these penance services, especially in a school, say, with 2,800 pupils.
Wow.
You don't have the number of priests right on the faculty to meet the spiritual needs of all those students. So they set up elaborate schedules where during a religion class, the students are brought to the chapel, but just maybe one class or two classes at a time. And there's a penance service with an examination of conscience, and then the opportunity to have individual confession.
Do you find this is getting increasingly difficult to do in our society, where the children are being shaped by MTV, by R-rated movies, by the sorts of things you find on magazine covers? I mean, it just seems they're constantly being bombarded by ideas and stimuli which aren't Christian. I mean, are you finding it's becoming more difficult to keep the children on track? Or are they kind of rebelling against that?
No.
Well, that's where you have to go after their freedom, and you say you have to choose the good, because it's very difficult to love Jesus Christ when you watch MTV.
There's no longer any.
I would think so, yeah.
There's no longer cultural Christianity.
So they don't have the support of the larger
of the
culture
culture.
anymore.
But you know, on the younger level, they love these opportunities. I mean, you can just see them relate so well to any type of a spiritual experience that you have, a prayer service or a May procession, let's say. I mean, they love this, and they talk about it.
You know,
it's really important.
Sister, there may be somebody in our viewing audience that doesn't know what a May procession is.
No, really.
Could you tell them? Because it used to be standard in all the
Right,
Catholic
that's
schools.
true. It is. It's a ceremony or a prayer service that we have that we usually have during the month of May to honor Our Lady. And our Blessed Mother is a very important part of the Catholic schools. She's the mother of all the children, and they learn that.
That's
And
beautiful.
so they like to honor her. They sing hymns, bring flowers, and just say, "Hi, Mom."
I think our Catholic schools teach the children how to live a life that's full of self-discipline. You know, Plato said the whole purpose of education was to lead young people from being controlled by others to control by self, to self-control. And we had 7,000 youngsters from all over the nation on the Parkway of Philadelphia last fall. And a priest went to the microphone and said, where is Maine? Maine cheered, and where's California? Each state recognized their own group. And then he said, now we're going to have prayer. And this was in the evening hours. These youngsters had never met one another, the ones from each state, and perfect silence while we had prayer on the outdoors. And then they processed down to our new convention center. And inside, again, we had prayer. Whenever they said we're going to have prayer, there was silent reverence, and a great sense of self-discipline. And there was nothing in the press about this event, because there was nothing wrong. It was everything was good.
Right, yeah.
So it was ignored. I mean, if they had been drinking and they were in a new town, they had come from all over the nation, but there was no incident, so there was no news about it.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. I think all of us are heartened as we see the great values within Catholic education. I'm thrilled at the way you all were constantly turning to our Lord, saying that is the very center of Catholic education, and we had this wonderful opportunity to see the great role played by our Blessed Mother in Catholic education, which obviously the children can't turn to her in any other kind of school. So we thank you so much for being with us. We pray for your endeavors, and are so grateful to God that you are helping to bring our children closer to Him. So thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for joining us on St. Charles Forum.